Alright, this is most likely the last video of the series, at least discussing arrays. Alright, but before we go any further, let's talk about the length. And I already have some code pre-written up right here. But before we go over it, let's talk about length. And as we can see, it's an integer type. It returns an integer, but I'm not going to cover that, why it does that yet. All this does is just return the size. Let's run this. Length 5. That's all this is. If this was 8, this tells us how long. This is kind of important, very important. It tells us how long this array is. How much space it's taking up. So we're going to keep it back down to 5. Maybe we better go 4. So we can... Alright. That's all that does. So I'm going to go ahead and destroy that. Alright, now. This is the meat of the video here. Let me go ahead and run this so we can see the results. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. That's all this does. But, let's go over it. So we create a variable here, I. I'm going to explain what this does in a second. But it's basically a counter variable. I want to count this loop. Let's take... Alright, so we have a while loop. Let's check the condition. While I is less than... Guess what? It's the length. X.length is 4. So you can imagine there's a 4 right here. And it doesn't change. It's a 4. Now that could change if I change the size of the array, but we can't do that yet. And it's a static array anyway, but we can still assign it a new value. But it's a different series. Alright, I'm going to stay focused. Now let's start tracing. X of, remember, so X starts off with 0. So X of 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. So and that's where we get the first value here. X of 0 is equal to 1. Just like that. We go ahead and print it out. And that's what this string does right here. Notice I got 4 separate strings right here. This becomes a string when I concatenate it. And same thing as this value becomes concatenated to a string. When I use the addition operator on a string, it just gets concatenated together. It doesn't do any mathematical operations. And then, of course, lastly, we increase the value of I by 1. So if this is 0, 0 plus plus is, makes I equal to 1. Then we go to 1 here. And we trace it 2 times. We trace it 4 times. So 1 is equal to 1 plus 2. And that's how we can assign many variables here. Let me add one more thing to this example. I'm going to make a new variable called sum. Right? And guess what it's going to do? It's going to add up all these variables. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. In this case, that should be 10. You remember the plus equal operator? I'm going to space that out. And it's basically going to keep adding this up. So remember, this is just adding to this value, this plus equal here. Since it's 0, it's going to add 1 at first. When it gets to the second loop, sum is equal to 1, but then it's going to add 2 to it, which will put it to a 3. When it gets to this next part, it's going to add 6, and then it's going to go to 10. Let's take a look at this. We're going to say sum. Let's go ahead and run this. When we get out of the loop, it says 10. Does 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 add up to 10? Yes, it does. But check this out. I can make this 100. And the sum is 5,050. Let's make this to 10. Alright? 55. Now I can make this 1,000. And it's still running the same code. 500. 1,000 and 500. 500,000. 500. Okay, and we can make it 10,000 variables. So this loop runs through 10,000 times, and you can see it take a little bit, at least on this computer. Yeah, that's pretty much it on this video. Just one. I'm going to change one more thing. I'm going to change. I'm going to say current sum. I mean, we already saw the index here, but we can see the sum start adding up. And it starts adding. Let's change this back to 10 or the 4. And we can see it starts off 1, 3, 6, and finishes off at 10, and then finally the final sum is 10. So we can see it add up. Let me change this to 10. This will be the last example. Should be 55. Yep. 1 through 10, 15, 21, 28, 36. And it just keeps adding. It keeps adding up. And those are 3 different examples. So hopefully this introduced you to arrays. We can with arrays we can really put variables inside the index, and that allows us to target certain variables through a system where we couldn't do that if we were just assigning non-array variables. But using the elements allows us to locate a specific variable, a specific element in the array by using this in here. So this is a little bit creative, a little bit tricky. But we're going to go more on arrays in the next series. So the whole point of this series was to get your feet wet. There's a lot that we didn't discuss, and I'm going to discuss that in the summary video when I make that. I'm probably going to remake the introduction too, since I know that, but we'll discuss what we talked about. Thank you for watching, and we'll see if I add anything else to it, but I don't think I will. Alright. That's it. Thank you for watching.